Hello everyone and welcome back to the good stuff. We are back at the 1921 World Chess Championship between Raul Capablanca and Emanuel Lasker. This is game 9. Capablanca is still in the lead, and congratulations everyone who figured out that the quote above the board is actually by Mikhail Tal, not by Capablanca. So there you have it. Now I've fixed it, so everything is in order. Now let's check out the game. Capablanca with the white pieces opens with d4. With d5, knight to f3, Lasker goes e6 with c4 and c5. Tarrasch defense is on the board. We have an early trade in the center. C captures, E captures, knight to c3 and knight to c6. And here Capablanca opts for a nice fianchettoing of the light square bishop. So bishop to g2 is the plan. We have knight to f6, bishop to g2, and now bishop to e6. And Capablanca just castles here. We have bishop to e7, and here d captures on c5 before developing the dark square bishop. We have bishop captures, and now bishop to g5, forcing black to at some point retreat with bishop to e7. And here Lasker goes for d4, and Capablanca says that he was not familiar with this line and he couldn't really decide whether he wants to go knight to e4 or just capture on f6. He decided to capture. He decided to go knight e4 as he thought it was the safer option. He was unfamiliar with the line. Capturing immediately can run into g captures on f6, and now after knight e4 you can either go bishop back to b6 or bishop to e7, probably bishop to e7, but it's hard to say what Lasker had in mind. And then there's a lot of imbalance in the position. You're going to waste a lot of time in the opening. You don't want to do something like this in a World Chess Championship match. So after d4, Capablanca goes for a nice knight e4 line, where he can just trade everything down and have a very safe position. So Lasker retreats, bishop to e7. Here you can't go bishop to b6 and claim that it's the same line as the previous one, because here white doesn't capture. Here white plays queen to c1, and now black will have a very hard time. There's a lot of pressure against the c6 knight here. You can't really castle to safety, and it's hard to decide what to do here for black. For example, if you castle, it's a game over immediately. Just bishop captures, and well, not that obviously, but after you capture the bishop, queen to h6, there's no defense against knight f6 check and queen h7 checkmate. One of the examples. So here knight back to e7 by Lasker, and now knight captures on f6. Capablanca nicely trades everything down with bishop captures, queen captures, and now Capablanca says that he doesn't like black's position here, especially the advanced d4 pawn, but he doesn't have a clear way of punishing the position. So he goes queen to a4. It's a nice idea. Still, you're pressuring the pawn here. You're pressuring this pawn. If, for example, the rook moves, maybe you can capture the knight and snatch the a7 pawn. Also, Capablanca has ideas of going queen b5 with an attack on the b7 pawn and queen g5, where he can force a queen trade, not allow Lasker any activity. Lasker just castles. Now the knight is no longer pinned. And here, while you could go rook, let's say rook ac1 or rook fd1, or fc1, just develop a rook, Capablanca still goes for his queen to b5. So now the b7 pawn is under attack, and or you could defend, or you could maybe play something like rook to d8, and then if Capablanca captures, maybe then you can go rook b8, but there's still the problem of the knight that will be undefended if you allow the capture on b7. So rook a to b8, better than rook f to b8. If you play rook f to b8, then okay, the rooks will be like this, and then it's hard to say what you will do with your a8 rook. So rook a to b8, keeping an eye on the b7 pawn, and here rook f to d1. Now Capablanca continues development. He still didn't go for queen to g5, but now Lasker prevents it. Now Lasker plays h6, and now Capablanca no longer can offer a queen trade here. Well, rather force a queen trade. And now knight to e1. Capablanca wants to now remaneuver the knight, and also now he frees the light square bishop, where there is maybe the threat of capturing the knight on c6. But Lasker says it's not a problem, just rook fe8. He's ready to put pressure on the e2 pawn, maybe with bishop to g4. And here Capablanca says that capturing the knight only leads to a draw, because if you capture on c6, you get b captures on c6, queen captures on c6, and now rook ec8. You force the queen back, queen to f3, and now Lasker would just capture on b2. And here after this trade, It's not a problem. Black will have a somewhat messed up pawn structure here, but also Lasker will have a lot of activity with the rooks. For example, if you try and untangle, your e2 pawn is under attack. Maybe you want to play knight f3, go after the pawn, but then d3 is a possibility. And after rook captures, you can capture on e2. Knight will come to d4 at some point, but you're going to have to keep it there, or black will be able to activate both rooks on the second rank, and it's hard to imagine that white will be able to do anything here. So after rook fe8, we have rook to d2 by Capablanca, now keeping an eye on everything here. On the second rank, and Lasker now goes bishop to g4, puts more pressure on the e2 pawn. Also, the rook is now free to roam the e file. We have rook to c1, now putting more pressure to the c file, and now rook to e5. Lasker prevents Capablanca from playing rook to c5, and here he tries to trick Capablanca into going rook to c5. Capablanca played queen to d3. But here, if you go rook to c5, seems like a reasonable idea. I mean, why not? It actually loses the game for Capablanca. So feel free to pause the video here and try to figure out what Lasker had in mind in this position. While I give you a couple of seconds. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent maneuverer of queens. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, queen to g5, this is what Lasker had in mind. And now the straightforward rook captures on e5 obviously loses to queen captures on d2, now threatening the knight here, but it's not so simple. The variation continues, bishop captures on c6. Now okay, you freed the g2 square for a king, queen captures on e1 with check, king to g2, and now you cannot capture here because the rook on b8 is hanging. But what you can play, and what Lasker saw, is a6. Now the queen has to remain on the b file to keep an eye on the rook, so you have to play something like queen to b3, and now d3 wins the game. Really just insane, but also it's still not that simple. The variation still goes on. Rook e7, threatening queen captures on f7, following queen captures on g7 with mate. So now comes rook f8. The rook is no longer here, so you will be able to capture on c6. But now, what do? You still can't capture the pawn as your bishop is hanging. You always have to keep an eye on the bishop, so you have to move it bishop to f3, and now d2 is winning again because the bishop guards the d7 square. No rook d7 is possible, and next move black will just get a queen into the game. So your best bet is bishop captures, but then once you get a queen into the game, you have a queen and rook against the bishop and rook. Of course, completely winning for Capablanca. The idea after rook to c5 is that, after queen to g5, is that Capablanca can play rook d to c2, now getting more firepower here on the c file, but it still doesn't work because of bishop captures on e2. And now rook captures on e5, bishop captures on b5, rook captures on g5, and now h captures on g5. Rook to c5, attacking the bishop and the pawn here, but now d3, where of course if you capture the bishop, then d2, and you cannot stop promotion. You will either play d1 queen or d captures on e1 queen, so you can't prevent both squares. And if you don't capture it, what else can you play? You could play knight to f3, just keep an eye on the d2 square, but then a6 defending the bishop. You're going to play rook e8, rook e2, you're going to play pawn to d2, and still it's going to be a very difficult position for white to defend. So this is what Lasker had in mind when he offered Capablanca to blunder the game with rook c5, but Capablanca is not interested. After all, he did not challenge Lasker for the title to blunder games like this. We have rook b to e8. Now Lasker occupies the e file, and now comes bishop to f3. And here Lasker has a couple of options. Maybe bishop h3 is possible. It seems like a move that really just overcomplicates things, doesn't really achieve anything, something maybe Tal would play, or maybe you could try h5 here to keep the attack going. But here, after Capablanca's bishop to f3, Lasker played bishop captures on f3. And it was in fact in this position that the players agreed to a draw on move 21. It seems like there's a lot going on the board, but really there isn't. After you trade everything down, it's a very simple drawish endgame, which can happen after, well, now white has to recapture. Let's say knight captures, you attack the rook. We have rook to e4 now, defending the d4 pawn, but now rook to c4, again attacking it. And now you play queen e6, and everything simply unwinds. knight captures, you will have knight captures on d4, rook captures on d4, rook captures on e2, captures, you will have captures, captures, and captures, and now you have this endgame where both players have a rook and 5 pawns, and the position is basically identical. So this is a completely drawn endgame. You can either go rook b4 to defend, or you can go rook to a4 to start attacking black's pawns, but all in all, this is a complete draw. So after bishop f3 and bishop captures on f3, of course, both Capablanca and Lasker knew that, and they decided to draw the game. So yeah, this is game 9. We could say a calm before the storm. Capablanca still leading 1 point in the match, and well, Lasker will have to figure out how to come at Capablanca with the white pieces in game 10. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. Also, I would like to thank Bill Danier, Frank Combs, Pablo Mohan, Andreas Lazos, and Chris Picard for the contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. And also, I would like to wish a happy birthday to Tom Sommer. May you win many chess games, and well, most of all, be sure to enjoy chess at all times. So yeah, as usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the Capablanca saga, checking up on your suggestions, as I already have a few very lovely suggestions, so thank you for that, and checking up what's going on in the chess world. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.